I'm Christopher Mick with Space St. Croix and the Hudson Area Library, and this was my first flight at the Hot Air Affair. It's a great experience, just the different events leading up to it, but the parade downtown with the fireworks and the field of fire. It changes every year with the weather. Sometimes, as you might guess, there's the restrictions where it's too windy or whatnot, and they can't do a flight, or they have restrictions on the field of fire and that. So it fluctuates depending on the days and what's going on, but it's always a great experience just getting to meet the pilots and people coming from all around to kind of participate in it, and excited kids, and on some of my education stuff, I do programs at the schools kind of talking about the science of ballooning. I did have one previous flight back when I was about 14 years old, and that was a much different experience because that was a solitary balloon or two taking off and just hearing the crowd, all the excited kids and the kind of whoops, and the PA announcer announcing our pilot, our balloon, having achieved liftoff. So that was kind of a neat carnival, atmosphere, with just seeing all the people and the excited kids and the kind of cheers as you started to go up. Sean Aiken was our pilot, and the balloon we were riding in that day was called Shotgun Rider. Sean Aiken told us there's three of us all together, him and two passengers. He indicated that there would be a lot of close contact, shifting around, so just be prepared for feeling him kind of adjusting your shoulders if he had to get around you, whatnot. For getting a visual on things. He could see roads and houses, but sometimes you wouldn't spot some things that were kind of nestled in the shadows there like that. As soon as we took off, the winds were taking us southwest. So we were kind of, if you were looking overhead, we were kind of going in like a 45-degree angle from where we took off, kind of crossing southwest angle into from Wisconsin into Minnesota, going over the St. Croix River there. It's just amazing. It's a wonderful experience. I highly recommend, if anybody gets the opportunity to go on a ride, to take advantage of it. For me, you really do get that sensation of what it must be like to be a bird. Because when you first take off from EP Rock there, we're kind of just grazing over some trees at the far end closer to the school, and you're drifting over the buildings, and you just get that, at least I did, that sensation of this must be what it's like, for a bird kind of tracking over the ground and taking everything in. So it's a wonderful experience. But when we kind of came over into the St. Croix River area, there was a balloon in front of us that we could observe that did like a touch and go, landing briefly and then lifting back into the air. And Sean said, we're going to do that. And that was pretty neat, knowing that we'd be coming in for that. So it was a really different experience seeing the ice from the air. You kind of see it broken into some individual cells and things that you really don't notice from the riverbanks when you're walking it. It was a very soft, I thought, based on my previous experience with a balloon flight, that as soon as you touch down, there can be a little lateral, drag just with the reaction and with the wind kind of blowing you. But Sean stuck the landing. We just gently came down and stopped. We didn't move, but there was no creaking. We were on a pretty solid spot, but I think he was keeping it just barely touched down. The only thing we noticed is while we were there, the basket, you felt it rotate just a few degrees to the right. It was going to be a touch and go, but we actually stayed there for several minutes because there was a balloon right behind us, and they were crossing over it, and our pilot explained to us that we have to sit here for a second and let him clear and get past us. So we were able to kind of take in the views and get some close-up photos of the ice and just the quiet, and just hearing the balloons kind of passing over us. And then when that balloon cleared, we immediately took back off again and proceeded with our flight. I got to blow some bubbles. He had a large bubble wand stowed in the basket there, and after you were kind of accustomed to where we were going and taking in all the sights, was blowing some bubbles. And it was really interesting because I think due to the air temperature, the bubbles kind of hung around us. We were all traveling roughly the same direction. They didn't pop. They really lasted a long time. So again, it was hard to kind of blow them and take photos of them at the same time, but that was one observation. They really lasted a lot longer than you're used to when you're kind of blowing them down on the ground. So I was able to catch a couple of shots with the sun kind of glinting through them, and that was a neat experience. I only got one quick video, but we saw a total of 3 bald eagles flying around us as we were flying, and then that made a little more sense as we started to cross over into Minnesota. We went over the top of a big tree that we could see an eagle's nest in the top of it, and so that kind of explained why we were seeing so much eagle traffic in the area. But yeah, spotted 3. I was able to get a quick video on the 3rd sighting. We were looking at almost like the touch and go on the St. Croix River. There was a few balloons that had taken off before us in Shotgun Rider, and our pilot was really monitoring their track and how they were responding and what winds were kind of taking them where they were winding up. And he saw an area when we got over into Lakeland that I believe was like a park, and then maybe there's another field, a smaller field, looked like maybe it could be a baseball park. And there was 3 balloons that had touched down in that area, and Sean really liked that open area there and wanted to touch down there. We were drifting a little bit more westerly past that into Minnesota, a little deeper into Minnesota. And he explained to us what he was going to try to do. He was going to lift the altitude of the balloon a little bit, hoping to catch a breeze that would bring us back. He referred to it as kind of corkscrewing back over to get to that landing zone. And he did that, and we kept kind of just going downrange. Now we were going more southerly, and we weren't coming back toward the St. Croix River as he was hoping to corkscrew over. So then we got past that field, and then it shifted to kind of looking for an alternate landing location. We were in a primarily residential area. I'd have to look up the exact address where we wound up. I was looking at some aerial Landsat maps of the area. I was trying to identify the exact house just from the terrain, but we were in a residential area, so we were all calling out when we were seeing power lines, and it was almost like porpoising. We'd crest over some tall trees, and he'd bring it down a little bit, looking for if there was any suitable place to land. And then it was interesting because you're kind of looking over at trees. They're across from you and above you. You're down amongst them, and he would pop back up then if there was nothing that looked good there. And we kind of keep doing this porpoising motion, I call it, going up and coming down, going up and coming down. And then after doing that a few times, we came over one ridge of trees, and he said, that looks good to me. And it was just a residence that had I think a 2-car garage with a concrete driveway that started wider at the 2-car garage and then kind of tapered down to a single lane. It was probably about a 50-yard distance from the house. The driveway went all the way down to the road and the mailbox, and he brought it in right there and there on that driveway between kind of 2 rows of trees that were flanking either side of the house. The homeowners actually came out. I think they heard us kind of coming in for a landing, and initially they were thinking maybe we had an emergency situation, so the homeowner was coming out to offer if he could call someone or if we needed any help. And Sean explained that he just thought this was a good place to land, and was it okay to land there in the driveway, and the owner said sure. So the husband and wife, the owners of the house, were there. There were some neighbors in the area, I think some people that kind of heard us poking around looking for a landing zone. And so there was a good group of people there, and then the recovery crew pulled up in the truck. Sean explained that due to where we landed with pretty high trees flanking either side of that driveway, that he wanted what he referred to as going skinny. He was going to release some air from the top of the balloon, which would kind of make it compress and go skinny, and then he immediately wanted, I was on the top line, with another part of the crew, another member of the crew, and as soon as he went skinny with it, he yelled out that he wanted us to kind of pull that as quick as we could down the driveway so we could kind of bring it in between the trees and bring the balloon straight down on the driveway down toward the mailbox there.
Oh, hello.
Just like that. It's funny how many drop all of a sudden when we're done.
You will grab. Reach in there and grab a piece of the bag. Pick it up high as you can if you're gonna drop it. Okay, take that flat, put it over the top. Up. Okay, just nice and easy. Easy, 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 easy. And then set it down right there. That's good.
I'm glad one of us took a shower.
Yeah, right. I thought, you know what, they're going to be a big
3 ends. In the toolbox, there's a big long. I think you're right.
There was a wonderful toast. Sean Aiken, the pilot, gave a wonderful speech about the Montgolfier brothers in 1783 and the first kind of balloon flight and how they made the discovery of hot air rising and seeing things and wanting to do some experiments with that and talking to, they were using silk as their material and talking to some people, convincing them to sew these very large sections of silk together to do this. And it was really amazing because there's a replica of that first balloon that was at the Hot Air Affair and was actually flying almost in tandem with us. And so it was really amazing to look over and see that balloon, that replica of the very first balloon flight. And that balloon actually kept going. We landed and that balloon did a dip right above us and it was going a little bit further downrange looking for their landing zones. So hearing his speech just about the evolution of that, and then we had a champagne toast, and Sean explained that that was a tradition back in early ballooning that in Versailles, where these flights were happening, you'd be landing on people's farms and scaring the livestock and whatnot, and they would bring bottles of champagne for the homeowners because that was the drink of nobility, and everyone was excited to receive a bottle of champagne, not a drink that they would usually get. And so he maintained that tradition. He presented a bottle that we all had signed with a Sharpie to the homeowners, and he opened a second bottle and we all had a toast to that, and it was just a very wonderful way to kind of wrap up the experience with that kind of history lesson and talking about the kind of joy of ballooning and sharing that with the kind of community that came out to help us pack up the balloon.
The winds have welcomed you with softness. The sun has blessed you with his warm hands. You have flown so high and so well that God has joined you in your laughter and sent you gently back into the loving arms of Mother Earth and your amazing crew. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.